Today, we're going to dive into a stimulating new research on the matter of pre-workout supplements. That thing that gives you that extra jolt and jitter right before you finish your 18th set of calf raises. Let's be honest though, those calves still ain't growing. In this video, we're going to dive into a new study that looked into the most stimulating pre-workout ingredient of all, and whether if it actually makes a difference in your heavy lifting. With the goal of performing at your best, a pre-workout provides an assorted concoction of supposed helpful ingredients that can turn that 1-rep squat max you hit 2 days ago into a 5-rep max using only one leg, or at least somewhere in between. But as many unpronounceable ingredients a pre-workout might have, it is commonly believed that the ergogenic performance-enhancing effects of a pre-workout is largely, but not entirely, attributed to one very common ingredient. Quite a play by the pre-workout industry, considering the industry raked in a measly $15 billion last year. That common performance-enhancing ingredient is caffeine, the most widely used stimulant in the world. As we know, caffeine has quite stimulating properties, promoting wakefulness, increased energy, and reducing fatigue. Prior research also showed that this energetic entity could indeed affect our physical performance. However, in this new study, the findings might just challenge how meaningful caffeine truly is when it comes to heavy lifting. Is it possible that caffeine doesn't play much of a role at all? Or maybe zero caffeine pre-workouts can be just as effective? In this new study, 24 college-aged resistance-trained participants with an even split of men and women completed 3 different training sessions. For those sessions, using a randomized crossover design, each participant either consumed a multi-ingredient pre-workout beverage containing 350 milligrams of caffeine, an identical multi-ingredient pre-workout beverage that contained no caffeine, and a placebo punch-flavored beverage. The beverages were all placed into opaque containers that are double-blinded to the researchers and the subjects. In other words, neither subjects nor researchers knew which beverages the subjects were consuming for any given day. Multiple exercise tests were performed, aiming for outcomes in upper and lower body strength and endurance. Additionally, they tested isometric strength and rate of force development in the squat. Good measurements overall to see exactly if and where caffeine might make a difference. In both upper body strength and endurance tests via the bench press, the caffeinated pre-workout not only did not fare better than the non-caffeine pre-workout, it also had no significant benefits over the placebo beverage. The same goes for lower body strength and endurance via the leg press, where again no improvements were observed with taking either a caffeinated or non-caffeinated pre-workout. Surprisingly, for the leg press 1-rep max, the non-caffeine pre-workout beverage actually fared worse than the placebo. For the squat measures, both pre-workouts do seem to increase performance in the isometric strength test and initial rate of force development. However, in the case of initial rate of force development, the non-caffeinated pre-workout in this case did better than the caffeinated beverage. To summarize it all, for the most part, caffeine or not, pre-workouts did not have much of any effect when it comes to lifting. Especially for the common lifts like the bench and leg presses, improvements simply were not there. That's kind of surprising. Previous recent research and analyses have consistently found at least some performance benefits with caffeine, especially for lower body performance. That might explain the improvements for isometric squat strength we saw in this study, but then the non-caffeinated pre-workout improved that as well. So it's definitely interesting. There might be an off chance that caffeine's effects might be overstated. Or maybe not when you consider some caveats to this study. The first caveat that you're probably already thinking about is caffeine tolerance. In my opinion, the researchers did the right thing by choosing participants that are habitual caffeine users, as that's probably the most representative population for those that are interested in taking pre-workouts in the first place. Young, frequently exercises, and jacked up on Starbucks. However, tolerance is still a big question mark. Although we do not have sufficient evidence on caffeine tolerance and its effect on physical performance, it's not uncommon to hear people say that it's harder to feel the effects of caffeine after taking a lot of it for a long time. Also, the researchers did measure subjective feelings, and from that, they found that subjects did feel more energetic, less fatigued, and more focused when consuming the caffeinated pre-workout. Although it did not influence performance, we have to consider these subjective changes. Keep in mind that these tests were done in a lab setting with controlled times, preps, and warm-ups. In a normal setting, people will be in a more comfortable, familiar environment, working out at a time they feel best, and have their own personal warm-up routines. Pair these with those feelings of more energy, more focus, and less fatigue, it can very well make a difference in your training. And finally, as always, don't forget that this is only one study. As good as the info might be, our decisions should never be made solely based on single findings, but rather through personal experiences and findings with abundant evidence. Altogether, I think the findings here do make sense based on the environment the researchers created. But accounting for real-world differences and also existing conflicting research, I wouldn't recommend throwing out your expired pre-workouts just yet. In the end, the choice is yours and how you feel about it. Just remember that if you really want to grow your calves, eat enough protein and look for another goal because it still ain't happening. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a stimulating thumbs up and share it with your caffeine-loving friends. Subscribe for more. As always, thank you for watching, and don't forget to get your protein. Does caffeinated protein exist?